Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hanson, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all in this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Well, hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. I am here today with Justin Nault, and this is going to be quite a conversation because we think similarly, and I like the out-of-the-box thinking, I like the in-the-box thinking, and I like all kinds of thinking. So this is going to be an interesting conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. And to start out with, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Justin, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Yeah, man. I mean, first things first, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. And my name is Justin Nault. I'm a certified nutritional therapist. I've been in the game of transforming people's lives for about a decade now. And I think of myself as more of a philosopher first, but a lot of the work that I do is in metabolic health and transformation, helping people take back their health with a sort of anti-mainstream approach or an anti-diet approach, and helping people reclaim their health through the lens of abundance, nourishment, and self-love instead of punishment, restriction, and sacrifice. So we're kind of flipping the whole thing on its head and helping people understand that the act of getting healthy doesn't have to suck, and it actually never should suck. It should be an enjoyable experience that changes your life for the better.
And that's what I really enjoyed about in my research, because I think when we're at the perfect time to exactly talk about this too, because there are so many people that are going to the gym or trying a new diet and they are punishing themselves. And I think that's why they don't last, is because you feel like it's a torture, actually. I don't want to, I live my life in the fact that I want to live it. I want to be in moderation, we'll say, understand what I'm saying. But I do believe in a lot of activity. I do a lot of active stuff. I do a lot of hiking. I do a lot of other activities to try to cleanse the mind and help the body.
Amazing.
So it's interesting because when I was listening to you, I mean, I don't know where you want to start with this, because I have so many. I'm out. I have so many things going through my head right at the moment.
I love it.
But you're an entrepreneur, and I love that energy you bring to yourself. With the entrepreneurship, I'm trying to delve into that myself, and sure. I think that's very cool. And it was an interesting story. Can we start? I don't know if you want to talk about it, but the reason you got into this was because of your niece. Is that correct?
Yeah. Happy to talk about it, man.
Well, that'd be good. Can you tell our listeners your story?
Yeah, for sure. The sort of condensed version. I came at health and wellness through the lens that most people do. I hated my body. I grew up in the 90s. I was born in 86, and I was the non-politically correct term that we used back then was I was a fat kid, and I got picked on, and I was chubby going into high school. I was like almost 200 pounds going into high school, and I grew up watching Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. So in my mind, the action movies, that was what a man is, and I'm over here with like rolls in my belly, and I hated my body. So at age 15, I jumped into no pain, no gain. I started lifting weights 2 hours a day, punishing my body, running on treadmills, everything. And then I got into the music industry as a career. So I started doing that professionally at 17, and then ended up going to school in Boston, moving down to Nashville. In Nashville, it was 300 shows a year. I had a reality TV show on ABC by the time I was 25. So I have all this insecurity and body image issues, punishing myself to make my body look a certain way. And I'm literally living under spotlights, which is just making the whole process harder. I had the body dysmorphia followed me into my 20s. And in my late 20s, I discovered the paleo diet and realized that if I really got a handle on the nutrition piece, I didn't have to exercise so hard. I'm just like melting body fat. I was like, this is like a magic pill. And I realized the power of nutrition through that. And that was when, as a hobby, just because I had spare time on my hands, my days were my own. I was only working at night. I became a nutritional therapist. I was like, I'm just going to teach myself nutrition. I'm going to be my client. I'm going to learn about epigenetics. I'm going to learn about the power of food, paleo diet, all these things, and I'm going to transform my health. And around that same time, my niece Savannah was born, and she was having over 300 seizures a day. So she, within the first 7 days of life, was put straight into the pediatric ICU, and they gave her less than 3 years to live. It was a really gnarly experience. She was hooked up to all these machines. They did over $1 million in testing, trying to figure out what's going on. And what people now know as the keto diet is actually a medical diet. It's used in mainstream medicine to suppress epileptic seizures. There's actually a whole foundation called the Charlie Foundation that teaches families how to adopt ketogenic lifestyles to keep seizures at bay in children who are epileptic. So whenever a child's having a seizure, and even if they're not diagnosed epileptic, they try a keto diet. Now, Savannah couldn't eat or drink, so they drill a hole in her stomach and they give her something called a G tube, and they feed her through a G tube. And all pediatric ICUs have a ketogenic baby formula called KetoCal. And I knew just enough at this time as a nutritional therapist to be really annoying to doctors. And I'm looking at this KetoCal stuff and I'm checking the ingredients, and like, it's high fat, low carb, which is technically ketogenic, but it's mainstream medicine we're talking about. So quality is not being considered here. And the fat is all hydrogenated vegetable oils. And there's artificial flavors and sweeteners. All the vitamins that they're using are synthetic versions, some of which are not even usable by the body. And I'm like, wait a second, this is going in the belly of a 3-week-old baby. Like, this is a problem. And I brought it to the attention of the neurologist, and he checked the ingredients, looked right at me and says, I never thought to check that. And that, my whole world changed, man. It was like my cliche red pill moment in the Matrix, where I was like, okay, nobody's coming to save us. This is a for-profit system. They're poisoning my dying niece. Like, this is crazy. And I don't think he was a bad guy. I think he was trying to help. He was just doing what his education taught him to do. And that was when I started studying human biology, biochemistry, buying biology textbooks and teaching myself. I made a baby formula for Savannah in my kitchen. I dehydrated paleo superfoods and made a powder, cleared it with the neurologist to feed it to her in her feeding tube because it was better than this toxic sludge they were giving her. And then my entrepreneurial brain kicked in because I was on my way out of the music industry. I was unfulfilled in the music industry at that point, and I was kind of looking for an out. And I'd read the 4-Hour Work Week. So I turned this formula that I made, I hired a food and beverage consulting company and turned it into a shelf-stable product, released my first supplement, and started selling it as a protein powder all-in-one superfood to CrossFitters. And, Savannah is 10 years old now. I launched the powder itself probably a little over 8 years ago. And now we're here. I've, thousands of client transformations and 650,000 followers, and people have Clovis tattoos on their skin, which is amazing, right? It's like, I'm in this whole world now talking to you today, but that's where it all kind of jumped off.
Well, and that is, I love when the odds get beat, and that is very, very cool when you can see that. And it's interesting because, I mean, this is only a partial bookcase here. I'm looking at your bookcase behind you, and that's where I love the educational part about things. I love the philosophical things and stuff, but it's interesting to me because when we talk about the food part, I'm wondering, I have to admit, I'm going to be 57 this year, okay? But I don't know if, I think it's about every young person, when you're young, you can live on Mountain Dew and jerky and whatever else, but you don't think about this stuff. And now I get to my age that I am now, and you're talking functional medicine more or less, and I'm thinking about hormones, like, as you grow older, I'm thinking about food, and I'm thinking about all that junk. I'm going to say that all that junk that we have been eating because it's easy.
Yeah.
I grew up in a ranch in central South Dakota. So, I actually did eat a lot of whole foods because you had meat and you had a lot of vegetables and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, to me, when we get away from eating like that, eating the whole foods, and we become simple because it's easy to go the drive-through. It's easy to go pop in that thing in the microwave. It's easy to do that. And I'm not trying to live that long life just to live a long life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to live the long life that is also fulfilling.
Of course.
And because I do think there's people out there that just want to live a long life, but that's why I love to go on adventures and stuff too. But to get back to that, how do we do that when we travel? You've traveled the world and been and seen many shamans and other things,
Mhm.
and how did you keep your nutritional existence going at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people, when you first come into my program, I'll give you an approved foods list. And that food list has over 110 foods to choose from. And health is truly this simple. If it's on that list, eat it. If it's not on that list, don't eat it. If you do that for the next 3 months of your life will change. If you do that for the next 12 months of your life, you will not recognize any aspect of your life at the end of that year. That's how powerful food is. Food versus poison. Food is only good for you in any amount. Poison is only bad for you in any amount. So as soon as we separate food from poison, all of the conventional diet rules go out the window. It's no longer about calories or any of this stuff because you're actually nourishing your body with food, which is the giver of life, right?
Yep.
And when people see that list, it's usually very different from the way they're eating now. It's not any more challenging or it's not harder to eat off that list. It's just different. It requires a different amount of intentionality. So people will often say to me like, well, I can't eat like this in my local area, blah, 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 blah. And I know it's an excuse. And I tell them I've eaten this way in over 20 countries around the world. And if I go to a restaurant in Thailand, I ask them the same questions that I asked a restaurant in Austin, Texas. When I'm working with a shaman in the mountains of Norway, I find a way to get local beef. I just walk into and find a store or Google or whatever and find a place that serves farm to table. I can go get local red meat, have a ceremony with a shaman, and the next day I'm eating a local grass-fed steak from Norway, in Oslo or whatever.
Yep.
You can do this anywhere around the world. It's just the intentionality of the thing, right? It's like once you shift, to speak of philosophy, once you shift the lens through which you view reality, everything is different. It would be harder for me now to start eating at fast food joints and going through the drive-thru. It would be harder for me now. My quality of life would decrease if I didn't go to the gym. My quality of life would decrease, be harder for me to not get sunshine on my skin every single day, right? So I've adopted an identity that is this person that I am in the world, which allows me at 38 years old to have, natural testosterone levels of 850 and have a lean body and be physically strong and do martial arts and all the things and have the cognitive function to run 3 businesses, right? Like I own 2 supplement companies and I own my coaching business and I have this thriving community and I'm here doing shows with people like you. I couldn't do that if I didn't fuel my body properly. So for me, there's no way for me to go back. The same way someone says, oh, this Clovis program, you can only eat these 110 foods. I'm like, first of all, who needs more variety than 110 foods? And 2, I have 5 pro-metabolic daily habits. I ask people to do 5 things every day, non-negotiable. And if they do those things, their health will get better. For me, in the beginning, it's new to them. So their mind that starts to use words like this is hard or this is what, it's not hard. It's just different. You already have daily habits. They're just different than my daily habits. And for me to go to your daily habits of an unhealthy, obese person with type 2 diabetes or something, me adopting their habits would be very, very difficult for me. It would feel very strange. So we're actually doing a full-blown identity shift and we're changing people's normals. So like my way of teaching, the blueprint that I give you for healthy living becomes your new normal. It's not a habit. It's not something you have to work hard at. You adopt it as your new normal. And then from that place, there's a belief that people have, right? Like, I will be healthy when I lose 100 pounds. That is a false belief. It's a self-sabotage pattern. The truth is you become a healthy person right now. You make that decision the same way you flip a light switch on. In an instant, I am now a healthy person. I will adopt the daily habits of a healthy person. And 3 months from now, what I manifest, the way that my body manifests health, is going to be that of a healthy person. It has to be because I've adopted the identity of a healthy person. But it doesn't work the other way around.
And I like that you say that because it is that switch that turns on and you have to decide that this is going to affect my life for the rest of my life if I choose to do that. Because in a podcast, the last podcast, I said, we are born, when we are born, we sign the contract of life and we own our life. We aren't paying rent here. We have to own our own decisions and our own choices. And throughout life, we either make good decisions or we make bad decisions. But it's to make that decision of where your life has to go.
Yes.
And I have friends that are in law enforcement and this is a long time ago. Somehow we got on talking about meth, and I said, I do not know how anybody could ever put those substances in your body when you know what meth is made out of.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've never done a drug in my life, except a prescription, of course, but you know
Sure.
what I mean. But where I'm going with that is, but then we turn around and look at the food that we are eating. And
Mm-hmm.
why are we putting those in our system to make us feel chronically ill in some
Right.
aspects? I mean, maybe we're feeling older than we should at the ages we are. You can correct me, but you were talking earlier about some of obesity in the United States, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, 100 years ago, people were active because they had to be active because that's how life was,
Mm-hmm.
more or less, and now we have so many things that are easy. And I don't know if it's the body functioning plus what we eat or whatever, but I'm, it's like things are transforming in my life because it's not easy anymore. Being fit was easy for me. And now it's like you have to work at it, but I still want to feel good. I want to eat right. I want to have my body moving. And then that's where I feel good myself. And I understand what you say. When you said, I don't, if you change to going to McDonald's every day, you can't do that because that's not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I look at things because I've been around enough people that take so many prescriptions because they're getting older.
Mm-hmm.
And I just see it just aggravates me sometimes, or it makes me start thinking. But because I'm not going to argue with anybody about who they are, but in that aspect, those are your choices you're making. But I see the food, then I see the prescription, then I see you go to the doctor who does it. It's one big circle anymore instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to make them better. And I was listening to a podcast with Casey Means, and
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that a surgeon didn't have to do nutritional classes.
Right. MDs don't as well.
You
Some
know,
MDs may get 4 hours of, nutrition education credits in all of medical school. Some may get 20 hours, but still, it's like I have 300 podcast episodes. Go listen to 300 episodes of my podcast and you'll know more about nutrition than a doctor.
yeah,
It's
and that's
astonishing.
amazing. It's amazing to me because we have to start at the root of the problem, and that's
Mm-hmm.
the root. If
Exactly.
if I need surgery someday because and I'll tell you something here, and I talked to one of my friends. He's a doctor, and I'm on no prescription. I mean, I have not. I don't have any of these at my age, and I'm proud of that fact because I look at so many people that have high blood pressure, have whatever signs of diabetes or
Mm.
whatever else. And I'm not saying put myself on a pedestal, but I'm saying,
Yeah.
you know what? If you stay active and you kind of moderate what you eat,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe you can be healthy in some aspects. You know what I mean? And now I'm trying to look at what the ingredients are.
It's the most important piece of the puzzle. I tell people too, like I have a walking billboard for the things that I do, and that is my father. My dad's 65 years old. He's been following my nutrition and fitness advice for about 10 years now. And he is on zero medications. He has six-pack abs year round. He deadlifts 315 pounds, and he spends most of his free time on a boat with his grandkids. He's got all the energy in the world.
Yeah.
And the average American, meanwhile, like crosses the age of 50. The average 50-something-year-old person in America is on 12 prescription medications. That's the norm. That's average, right? So when
That
you
is
look at it
crazy.
like that, but this goes back the real root cause. I mean, the root cause of the food system in America is corruption, and we can get into the history of that and where the ultra processed food system comes from. But to go back, I want to touch on what you said about meth because this is really important, right? The question of how can someone put meth in their body when we know what meth does and we've seen the before and after pictures and we know what's going on there. The only way that happens is if you have a tremendously low self-worth and tremendously low self-love, where you literally think your life doesn't matter. That's the only way that decision gets made. So when people first come to me for health and wellness advice, they think I'm crazy because the first thing I have them do is stand in a mirror, look themselves in the eyes and say, I love you 10 times out loud and really try to mean it. We're going to start with self-love, because if we don't start there, if we start with self-love and food versus poison, then it's a different lens we're looking at it through. Because if someone's drinking 10 Pepsi Colas a day and I come along and say, hey, listen, let's cut out the Pepsi, in their victimhood mind, they're going to go, this isn't fair. Here's another nutritional therapist who's telling me I can't have my favorite thing. This sucks. Getting healthy sucks. Or we give them a different lens to view it, which is, this is toxic poison. And I love myself so much that I would never make the decision to knowingly poison myself. And that is a tremendously profound difference in whether I'm taking away my favorite food through restriction and this sucks, or I love myself. So I'm only going to nourish my body with the best. It's a big, big difference.
And I agree with that because I believe in confidence, in yourself. Not arrogance, confidence. I've said this before, but I believe that being confident within yourself helps you get through those hard parts in life but I don't want to be arrogant and tell you that I'm so confident with myself that I'm good at everything, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Nothing is easy. Nothing is easy. But I like the way you said when you take away the poison, because the problem with the food part, I think, is it's addicting and it tastes good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy to fall into those things because they're sweet or they're whatever they are, that addict us to those things. And it's hard then to get off. I think some of it's harder than cigarettes. I mean, and I don't smoke either, but I would just think some of those things are hard because everybody, you go to a business function or something, and those simple things, those simple foods are right there in front of you, and everybody else is eating them. And sometimes if we aren't confident in ourselves, we subdue to the peer pressure.
Of course.
And then we fall back into that because we subdued into the peer pressure. And now I can go back to eating 5 donuts a day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dude, you opened an amazing little rabbit hole here, because a lot of people don't realize this, but in the 1980s, Philip Morris was and is the biggest cigarette company in the world. And they got hit with a lawsuit, and the US came out and said, hey, a couple things, buddy. You can no longer market these products to children. You can't market cigarettes to children anymore. And 2, you have to tell the world that your product causes cancer. You have to tell people cigarettes cause cancer. Both of those things are tremendously bad for profit, right? Yeah. So what Philip Morris did was they bought 80% of the food companies. And what they did was they hired food scientists to start manufacturing and engineering the most addictive foods they could possibly make. So there are positions within big food companies that are multiple 6-figure salaries that are food engineers whose only job is to manufacture new, hyper-palatable foods, which are as addicting as possible. There is literal science going into how much the nacho cheese on the Doritos sticks to your fingers so you're tempted to lick your fingers and go in for more. This is carefully designed. They're hijacking your hypothalamus. They're literally hijacking your biology. So your statement about some of these foods are as addicting as cigarettes, 100%. It's the same people behind cigarettes that are behind our food system. And you travel back in time to the activity piece of, like, there's a document that I love called the 1939 Yearbook of Agriculture. And this was studying the nutritional intake of Americans living in New York City at that time in 1939. The average 155-pound man was eating over 4,200 calories a day. 0 obesity, 0 type 2 diabetes, 0 heart disease, right? Yep. So is it really that we have a calories problem, or do we have a food quality problem? And to me, the answer is abundantly clear. It's just that there are trillions of dollars at stake and trillions of dollars in marketing propaganda from the time we're kids in school, with the government and teachers telling us what to eat, that is purposefully poisoning us for profit. The system is designed that way.
And And it's funny because I don't know how to go about this, but lobbyists or whoever is doing some of these scientific studies, and then you look at who is paying for these scientific studies,
Yeah,
and it's interesting to me that people don't see that they might be slightly skewed.
of course. I mean,
You know.
Coca-Cola is one of the biggest funders of the American Diabetes Association. How do we live in a world where that is okay, you know? And not only that, but people started catching on. We're like, oh, okay, these food companies are funding a lot of scientific studies. And some people like me get on the internet and we tell people, hey, you got to check who's funding the study. There's conflict of interest here. So what they started doing is, like, my favorite example of this is there's an organization, it's a nonprofit called ILSI, which is the International Life Sciences Institute. And if you look up ILSI, they're like, we fund nutritional studies for the betterment of mankind, and we're a nonprofit 501c3 International Life Sciences Institute. Then you look up who owns that nonprofit. It is all food companies. It's Kraft,
Yeah.
Kellogg's, Post, Red Bull, right? They all got together. They start a nonprofit with a warm, fuzzy name, and then they fund the nutritional studies through that warm, fuzzy name, so nobody is the wiser that food companies are still the puppet masters behind the scenes. It's a very, very corrupt system.
Yes, and it's funny because I told you my age, and I remember Marlboro being advertised on TV, and the Marlboro Man and those
Mhm.
advertisements, and now I see uh, pharmaceuticals. It drives me nuts because I do not think we would have mainstream TV if we didn't have pharmaceuticals paying for all the advertisements in between the shows, and
Yeah.
that bothers me personally because and my wife, she she agrees with me, I think, but it's interesting because how a pharmaceutical company, then you go to the doctor and say, you know what, I just saw that pharmaceutical on TV, can you prescribe that to me?
Yeah.
That seems stupid to me, like hypocritical, and it seems like I understand the marketing part, but uh, I just don't understand how we as a society have let that be run like that in that aspect of letting these. I understand. I have no problem with a capitalist society at
Mhm.
all,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that just seems like you're hurting these people because you want to have them have more prescriptions. We're ruining our society's health in that aspect. Like I, I won't ever. I personally would never go do an Ozempic. I can figure out that I can go hike a mountain and I can look at my uh, uh, the way I eat and fix that through functional things. Not I don't have to go to the doctor and say, you know what, can I have the quick, easy way of not gaining weight or losing weight or whatever I need to do. And
Mm.
it's not the weight that's your problem. It's your mental, like you said before, the confidence is your problem.
Mm.
And to me, because I, how many people do we see, and you probably have clients even that may have lost all this weight and then they gain it back because there's really no change in lifestyle.
Yes, exactly. This is why, especially for low calorie diets, like, we have studies now that show low calorie dieting, people who lose the weight, 95% of those dieters gain it all back within 5 years. And many of them gain more weight than what they initially lost. And we're seeing the same thing happen now. There are studies coming out and all these people coming out who are now GLP-1 resistant, right? Ozempic, semaglutide, all these things, where these drugs just don't work on them anymore because it's the same thing as if you're doing constant calorie restriction. You're down regulating your metabolism, you're starving your cells, you're ending up in a low energy state, which is horrible for health and wellness. And eventually you have to bounce back. Your lizard brain is going to say, we don't have enough to survive. And then if you have a house full of ultra processed junk food, you're going to eat because your lizard brain's like, yo, we're dying, we're not eating enough. And then no amount of willpower is going to shut your body's survival mechanism off. You're going to go to the pantry, you're going to finish the bag of chips, you're going to drink the Coca-Cola, whatever, right? So you have to place yourself in an environment where those things just don't exist. You have to make the identity shift.
And I actually agree with you there because I have to admit, I can admit the changing, but was an ice creamaholic.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And if it's not in the house, you don't eat it. It
Exactly.
makes it easy.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to have some, and I don't disagree in maybe occasionally if I want some, I can go have some. But
Hmm.
here's where I'm going with that. If it's not in the house, it's not an everyday thing.
Sure. Of
And I'm
course.
not addicted to it. It's kind of like anything for me personally. It's occasionally maybe, but not every night. I'm not eating a half a gallon of ice cream a night or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't. That's where I agree that. I mean, you to researching to talk to you was very interesting because when you were talking about, I listened to you were talking about seed oils, and I was looking at myself because once again the seed oils made things taste a little bit better, but I didn't understand the health effects
Hmm.
that, like having a real butter, we'll say, or real food, and it that has, I mean, in the probably last 6 months, well, maybe year, we'll say. My wife is very hippie-ish, so I can say longer than that probably. She's changing me to the better because, like I said, thing there came a time where things were simple, and I could stay very healthy and active. But now, you just start getting a little older, and you don't realize what those foods, what like you talk about energy,
Hmm.
like they take away my energy. They
Yes.
aren't
Exactly.
fulfilling my energy needs in my life. And because I know I'm going all over the board here, but you were talking about your dad at 65.
Hmm.
My dad's at 81, and he walks 3 miles a day and 4 miles on Sunday.
Wow.
And he lives in a little town, and if you want to know what's going on early in the morning, because he gets up every day and does this, if he's at home, of course. But
Sure.
it's where where he grew, where he lives. When I was living in that area, it's, if you're doing something healthy, why are you doing it? And if you're out exercising, who's chasing you?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no need to do that stuff. And
Yeah.
I like where we're going with this, is what I'm saying. I like that, talking to people like you and learning about this stuff, the seed oils and stuff, making me better. Could you maybe talk to a few people about the seed oil thing? Because it is very interesting to me how you're talking about, like, I was listening to one where you're talking about the dam and it had a little hole in it, and
Hmm.
I would love for people to hear that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So a couple things. One, we can talk about kind of like Philip Morris, the cigarette companies. Procter and Gamble is responsible for introducing seed oils to the U.S. So in the early 1900s, Procter and Gamble had this waste product, an industrial waste product in their hands that was cottonseed oil. They had tons and tons of cottonseed oil. And they had the idea of, what if we could put this into products and start to sell it to consumers? Can we make this an ingestible product? And this is where things like Crisco came to be, which is just like pure hydrogenated vegetable oils. Cotton, the first Crisco was cottonseed oil. Now, the best way to do that, to get somebody to eat a truly new and novel food, is to hijack science. So they did the same thing that food companies did today. They went to the American Heart Association, which was a tiny little organization that couldn't get funding for their studies, and they paid them $1 million. That's the equivalent of $27 million today, by the way, in today's
Hmm.
dollars. And they paid them $1 million to say, demonize animal fats, butter, tallow, whole milk, all these things. Demonize animal fats and say that these polyunsaturated fats, these seed oils, are better for human health. Before you knew it, seed oils were in everything, and they have been ever since. So again, it's just like Philip Morris with the hyperpalatable foods. That's where this stuff comes from, and that's important to know. And then you get into the situation of what's actually happening at the level of the cell. Now, to spare your audience a literal lesson in biochemistry with words that don't make sense, right? Is like what we're talking about is the phospholipid membrane, and moving hydrogen ions across the phospholipid membrane to create something called ATP, which is the energy currency of the cells, right? So that's all the nerdy biochemistry out of the way. Basically, what's happening is, if you think about like a hydraulic dam or whatever, like the Hoover Dam, let's say. So we have this dam with a tremendous amount of potential energy that is the water pressing up against the dam. We want to focus that energy through one specific slot in the dam that is turning wheels, or it's moving things in a way, that pressure, that energy focused in that one place is generating a ton of energy. So these dams can power a whole city grid, right? But only if the amount of energy getting forced through that channel is as powerful as it is. So if we took a dam and we took a giant drill and we just drilled thousands of holes in the dam where water could rush out from all these different holes that aren't producing any energy at all, that's what's happening at the level of the cell. We need very, very strong phospholipid membranes to create energy. We're humans, we're animals. So those membranes are supposed to be made from animal fats. These are saturated fats. This is like your butter, your tallow, whole eggs, whole milk, right? These kinds of things. When we make those kind of cellular dams out of seed oils, they become permeable. It's like they have 1,000 holes in them and you're wasting energy. And wasting energy is the equivalent of rapid aging. So to going back to what you said, we circle way back to the beginning of the conversation. We were like, oh, when I was a kid, I could live on Mountain Dew and pizza and I felt great, right? It's because your cells are young. Their ability to regenerate themselves is fantastic. Now, over time, just like if you put a small investment in the stock market 100 years ago, right, and you just leave it, compounding interest, things get better and better and better and better. The constant poison load on the cells throughout all of our lives is like compounding interest in the negative direction. It's exponential damage over and over and over. And as you age, your cells lose their ability to regenerate and recover from the poisoning that you're doing to your system. So we're literally aging faster than we should be. And now, like in the last 3 years, the life expectancy has gone down 3 years in a row in the US. We have the worst health outcomes in the world, and we spend the most money on healthcare. It's a completely broken system. Like it literally needs to be uprooted and started from scratch. It's a colossal failure.
I truly believe that because I think there's a medical establishment that wants to just keep on, not fix the problem, but keep the motor running, we'll just say.
Of course.
Change the oil, keep things running, but don't fix it if it breaks down. You just kind of duct tape and bale and wire kind of thing together. But to me, when we forget the meat fat part of life and how it also helped in brain function, mm-hmm. I think that's somewhat, everybody's looking for nootropics. They're looking for how to focus. They're looking. And do you think that because we've taken that out of our society for, we can say 80 years, just about 100 years now. Mm-hmm. I mean, making it an important thing are we changing as a species?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. And to what you're speaking to, like the saturated fat, what we call animal, there are plant saturated fats as well. Like coconut oil is a super healthy saturated fat product, right? But what the saturated fat is a huge deal for all cellular function. This is true everywhere, including your brain, your neurons, all these things that need to function optimally for high cognitive function. But my favorite example of this, the most important thing to talk about, is when I use this term low energy state. When we have a low energy state in the body, and this is why all obese people are dealing with a low energy state. We tell them they have too much energy, which is completely incorrect. They don't have enough energy because they're malnourished. So they have low energy symptoms. You never meet an obese person who's like, I'm so energetic and I feel amazing all the time and my libido is high and I love going to the gym, right? It's like, no, I feel tired all the time. I have low energy. I'm cold all the time. I have low libido. My hair is thinning or falling out. My teeth are sensitive. All these low energy symptoms, right? So what's happening with the cognitive function that you're talking about, and we know this in mental health for depressed and anxious subjects. In clinical studies, when we measure ATP output, the energy being produced by the body, in clinical studies, depressed and anxious subjects generate 20% less energy than non-depressed and anxious subjects. So we actually are dealing with an energy problem, which goes back to me saying food is only good for you in any amount. The more food, the better. Poison is bad for you in any amount. The less poison, the better, right? Like it's that fundamental. If we're nourishing our body with species appropriate whole foods from nature that belong in our system, we have plenty of energy. We create plenty of ATP. We're not depressed. We're not anxious. We don't suffer from mental health disorders. And our cognitive function is better. We don't need nootropics to get through the day.
And we get in which it keeps on going in that circle, because when you're depressed, then people go eat and they go do other things to try
Exactly.
to pick up that energy, pick up that their mental health, and try to be more happy and
Yeah.
happiness. And that's where we need to learn. I like what you said too when you in the beginning too, is by putting people in front of a mirror and saying, tell yourself that you love yourself, and be
Hmm.
confident in yourself, because you know, I mean, I've listened. I've I just about it behind me. I have, I think, every book the Dalai Lama has ever wrote,
Mm. Amazing.
and I believe that for us to keep on changing, we need to find where joy comes from, not just
Hmm.
happiness, not just that sudden reaction of that tastes good,
Mm, yeah.
but we to find the joy is to have a good life, to enjoy what your whole body and whole life is.
Yeah.
And I think we lose that because we are depressed. We are searching for that energy. We don't want to eat. We don't, the right stuff. We don't want to go for that walk and get the fresh air. We don't want to get the sunshine on us, because
Mm.
I think there's a lot of things out there that we have been told not to do that are healthy. And I think we need to start learning that yes, sun gives you skin cancer, but you need sun to also have energy,
100%. Yeah, the
and
sun is the closest thing to a magic pill I've ever found for health and wellness. I mean, it's right up there with food. It's like I'm honestly like I try. It depends. It's the wintertime here in Austin, but I still get sun every day. Like in the spring and summer months and fall months, like I'm getting hours of sunshine a day. Like it's
yeah,
critically important.
yeah. And I'm here in South Dakota, so and then it's also cold, and
Yeah, it's cold right now.
it's funny we're talking about this, because my stepson moved to Anchorage, Alaska,
Mhm.
and we went up there for Christmas.
Yeah,
And then it was cloudy. We never got a good day of sunshine, we'll say.
yeah,
And I could never get out of that mentally. I could never get out of it. Was dark all the time.
mm,
It was dark, even though it was day. It was light. It was
yeah,
dark, and
yeah,
I just could never get that energy flowing because of the sun. Then we fly back in to South Dakota, and there's sunshine there, and we get 3 extra hours of sunlight, and my mental life changed right there, in the
yeah.
aspect of, now I'm starting to feel better. I'm getting more energy, and of course, uh, I have to admit, I didn't eat the best I should have ate, but it was one of those things that the sun and everything else just drags you down if you don't have it.
Totally. Yeah. And again, it takes us back to the myth and what decisions we're making. It's like if you're depressed and feeling low or feeling just like lethargic or whatever, then like the idea of making good, healthy choices, it seems the perception of it is that it's much, much harder. And it's kind of like, oh, well, what's the point? I don't feel great anyway. Everything kind of sucks, you know? And you get
Yeah,
stuck in that. It's this kind of learned helplessness, victimhood mentality.
yeah. And so, do you go look into any of the hormonal stuff, like for men, or anything in
Mhm.
your Clovis, or wherever else you're going, just
Yeah.
coaching?
Absolutely. I just look at it through a different lens than everybody else, right? So, like, again, the mainstream answer is like, oh, you have low testosterone? Here's some testosterone cream, or here's an injection, and let's
Mm-hmm.
artificially raise that level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is not solving the root problem. It's like putting a
Mm-hmm.
band aid on a bullet wound. No, this will heal
Mm-hmm.
itself, right? That what's happening is my primary focus is human metabolism. Hormones are downstream of human metabolism, right? If you picture a river, there's upstream, and everything upstream is running downstream. Your metabolism is responsible for the production of hormones in your body. So trying to fix hormones without fixing metabolism is a losing battle, no matter what, guaranteed. So men will often hear this like, well, if you go on testosterone, you have to stay on it for the rest of your life. That's not true. It's just that your body is in an environment that supports low testosterone. You're eating crappy food, you're not exercising, not getting sunshine, whatever. So you're in a low testosterone state. Then we pump you full of testosterone cream or injections or whatever, and you just keep living your life the same way. You're still living life in a way that doesn't support testosterone, but now you have exogenous testosterone that's artificially spiking your numbers. So if we take you off that exogenous hormone, you're just going back to your lifestyle, which is why you had low testosterone in the first place. So your testosterone levels dip down again. And then people say, see, look, I have to be on testosterone for the rest of my life. It's not true. So when I work with men, even when I do hormone replacement therapy in men, which I have done for many of men, and we work with doctors, I have a full team. If you guys want a full stack team of doctors and performance coaches, strength and conditioning coaches, I'm partnered with a company called Own It, and we can literally set you up for that. But if you do hormone replacement therapy, we're also going to change your health and wellness. We're going to clean up the diet. You're going to get sunshine. You're going to exercise, all these things that support testosterone, bring your metabolism back to life so it can create its own testosterone. And eventually we can wean you off the testosterone and your levels stay at a normal, healthy level. But we have to attack it from both angles. You can't just pretend this testosterone cream is going to change your life, you know?
I do, because I believe exactly what you're saying, because you can't. It's like everybody wants a magic pill, and it's more than a magic pill. It's more than a cream. It's more, it's the food, it's the
Mm-hmm.
exercise, the sun, and in trying to get to that level of hormonal treatment if you need it
Mm-hmm.
to keep it flowing, because that's where we all need to go. And I agree with you 100%,
Yeah.
because of that. It's just interesting to me because I see it more and more out in reading articles, in books, in men. It's
Yeah.
been it's been a little bit more in females, but it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to me because um, my wife, it she says she does a lot of reading and stuff, and there's another situation where our doctors don't learn a lot about hormonal treatment either, functional medicine. They just do not have to. It's about everything else, but not that. It's just how
Right.
to. And I think it's interesting that we live in a society that isn't looking at the holistic and all sides of the story,
Yeah.
because we have people that know a lot of stuff that aren't doctors, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very cool with me, and I just I'm trying to learn, and I'm looking. That's why it's so interesting to be able to talk to you and learn every conversation I have, and I'll leave this tonight like saying, oh, and I'll go, and you give me a conversation to help build my relationship with my wife, because then I can go say, you're going to guess what I just talked about today.
Of
So,
course. Yeah. It's
but
beautiful.
I would like you to tell. I mean, if you want to, would you like to tell some people about what you do, the Clovis part, or anything
Sure.
like that? That just let
Yeah.
people know how to reach you and do stuff like that too.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So I run everything through social media. The whole business is
Mm-hmm.
run there. I have a supplement company called Clovis. That's iamclovis.com. I have a supplement company called MedChoice, MedChoice on Amazon. And then I have my coaching programs. So I run everything for my coaching and my metabolic health coaching, everything that I do. You can go to any of my social media accounts. The handle's the same. It's at Justin Nault Official. So, for instance, if you hear this conversation and you go to Instagram, Justin Nault Official, click the follow button, send me a message, you're going to get me directly. It's not a member of a team or whatever. It's just me. Just message me and say, hey, I heard you on this podcast. I'm interested in your foods list. I'll send you the foods list for free. I'm interested in your daily mirror work. I'll send you the daily mirror work for free, right? I'm just going to ask you questions. What are you going through? How can I help you? Here's some free resources. If you want to work with me, you can hire me for private coaching. I have group coaching programs, online courses, and they are incredibly transformative, as you may have heard from this conversation. It's just a holistic approach to helping you live your very best life.
And that's what got me very interested in, and is looking at your social media. Uh, it to see people that change, and to see the positiveness and everything that you put out there is just amazing to me, and I
Hmm.
just love. that's where I like to go with this, and that's what Don't Die Rusty is about. Is like I said, it's about wearing out, not rusting out, and that's
Yeah,
about
yeah.
living your life to the fullest. And that's where I like. That's where I'm keep on telling you, like it's if I can eat better, if I can have different movements that might enhance my life, that's what it's about. And so, but I heard so what did you I'm going to go way off track here now just to
Yeah, yeah.
cuz it interests me that you were in Nashville and you played like what did you do in Nashville then?
Yeah, I
For
played
what was your
piano and sing.
band?
So it was
Really?
all under my name, just Justin Nault, first and last name. If you Google me or YouTube me, you're still going to get a ton of music. Like you can go to my
Yeah.
Justin Nault music channel. I got music videos. All my music is in TV shows. It's in movies, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, man, I was performing 300 nights a year for 15 years. It was a long and fantastic career. I had a great time.
And but how did 300 nights a year, how did that affect you? I mean, that's a
Oh, it crushed me.
lot of nights. Yeah.
Crushed me, brother. That's why we're here. Right? That's why I
Yeah.
had to go on a health and wellness because all I understood was fitness. I am masochistic about fitness, man. I was for a long time because, like I told you, I grew up hating my body. So, man, like I was a boxer. I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I was doing CrossFit 2 a days. I worked with an Olympian to learn Olympic lifting. I worked with the Strong First founders to learn how to swing kettlebells. I was running Tough Mudder races. I was doing everything, right? It was like fitness, fitness, fitness. But I didn't understand the nutrition piece. So no matter how hard I worked, my body didn't look the way that I wanted it to work. And then I'm basically working night shift. Like I'm going to work at 9 o'clock at night and I'm going to bed at 6 o'clock in the morning, right? Last call's at 3 a.m. So I'm getting off stage at 3 a.m. and then getting myself home, eating a meal, trying to decompress a little bit. It's 6 a.m. before I go to bed, which is a horrible way to live your life. Like there's not many bigger obstacles than like graveyard shift work for metabolic health. It's really not good for you. So yeah, it was
Mm,
destroying my health, man. Like in my late 20s, I had the testosterone levels of a 75-year-old man. My testosterone dipped into the 250s. Like right now, I'm
really?
38. I'm not on any hormone replacement therapy, and I'm naturally my testosterone is 850. I'm way healthier now than I was as a 26-year-old man with a TV show that everybody thought was uber successful. You know, I was just like my mental health was poor. I was drinking a lot. Like it was not a good way to be. It was killing me.
And, well, and in that aspect right there, it's the inspiration that you were there. You lived what people here's the interesting thing, the perception that people look at people as successful
Yeah.
and within themselves they don't feel aren't being fulfilled by the success.
Yes.
So they and then for you to see yourself and to also have your niece's situation too, but
Hmm.
for you to see yourself and then start transforming yourself and learning about the health and learning about the nutrition and learning about everything else. When people say that you can't do that, then you say, no, you can because I did it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the way I like to share this, just to make it more relatable, right? It's like I'm not here as some guru on high who all the answers were magically downloaded into my brain because I did ayahuasca and now I can tell you the thing. It's like no, this is a 20-year journey of self love and me realizing that from the time I was a little boy. I got messages from media programming that Arnold Schwarzenegger was the best way to look, and I didn't look like that. Therefore, I was not a man or I was not as important as Arnold or whatever it is, right? So like I had all this negative self-talk and my music career actually really amplified that in my mind because
Mm-hmm.
I have to show up in a certain way every night. Everybody already has an idea of what I am and I have to show up as this big bright shiny rock star every night and it was just a prison cell of inauthenticity. Like I couldn't connect with people. And that's what people don't realize about celebrity, about being a performer or whatever, is like you're up there every night, no matter what's going on in your life. You're the bringer of the party. You're bringing all this energy and people are getting this energy from you. Like it's just performative. I was performing all the time. I wasn't actually connecting with people in an intimate and authentic way. I was just playing make believe all the time. And I never thought that I was good enough. So the only reason why I start all my programs with self-love is because self-love was the biggest unlock for me in my personal life. I had to go on a journey of self-love And for me, I had to travel around the freaking world and be throwing up in tents with shamans after drinking ayahuasca. And like, you don't need to do that. You can if you want to. It's one path to go. It's the path that I had to go down, to get to where I am today. But I'm trying to save people a lot of these steps. And like, hey, I'm taking my 20-year journey of self-love and optimal health and wellness, and I'm condensing it. And I'm giving you these 90-day programs. And I'm saying, hey, if you do these simple things every day, you can get healthy a lot faster than I got healthy. I can shortcut this for you, and you can just learn from my mistakes and my achievements, right?
Yeah, because it's interesting. It took me a little bit longer to figure out that health wise,
Yeah.
I feel fulfilled in a lot of things right I've done, but I don't feel fulfilled in like in my health journey
Sure.
yet.
Yeah.
And I'm learning, like I said, in the last probably 3 or 4 years, I have started eating way different and looking at more stuff, looking at the cartons of things.
Yeah.
I, and I think that health journey is a different for everybody else. I mean, people, and how do you, like, people come to me and say, I'm a big Solomon Speed Cross. That's the only shoes I love to wear. Okay.
Yeah.
But where I'm going with this is how do you, but they're good for me. They,
Mhm.
I love those shoes, but they may not be good for you. Like,
Sure.
and how do you handle people that say, you know what, this is good for me. It can be good for you, but I think you need to try it. Do you understand what
Mm.
I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
And how do you handle those people that are talking to you about this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is like, I think there's a lot of messaging in health and wellness today around bio individuality, where it's just like, oh, not everyone is the same and different diets work for different people and all this stuff. I actually think that's mostly nonsense. It's a controversial opinion that I have, but it's like human biology is human biology. Human biochemistry is human biochemistry. It's like there are things that are going to help your cells create energy, and there are things that are going to disrupt your body's ability to create energy, right? And then there's two different branches. One is very, very good for your health, and one is a very terrible outcome that leads to chronic disease, right? So the basics of like the pro-metabolic daily habits that we have, those are very basic. They're going to make everybody feel better. And if they don't make everybody feel better, every single thing that I do carries a 100% satisfaction money back guarantee. If you try this and it doesn't make you feel better, I'll give you your money back and you can find the next thing that works for you. But I don't get refunds. People don't ask for refunds. People don't ask for their money back because this stuff works. Now, in terms of what your show is about and all these things, like your authentic best life, that's going to be individual to you. How your cells work, that's human biology. We reproduce, we have DNA and RNA, we make babies, and we're all the same thing. We're the same species. The things are generally the same in terms of health and wellness. But when it comes to your overall happiness, what kind of shoes are your favorite shoes? What kind of workout? Do you like to do yoga? Or do you like to lift weights? Do you like to go hiking or do you like to ruck, right? Like, what is the thing that you like to do? I love jujitsu. Some people go roll jujitsu. They hate it. I never want to do this again, right? But what we have to do is we have to handle the foundation of health and wellness. I always say this, for nearly no one on the planet is health and wellness a goal. Health and wellness should be a given. It's autopilot. So we remove the obstacle of health and wellness by putting all this stuff on autopilot and living a healthy life so that you can go out and you can discover what makes you happy, what fills you with joy. How do you like to spend your life? Rick likes to adventure in one way. Jane from down the street, she likes to adventure in a different way. But when someone's health and wellness is trash and they're full of chronic health conditions and they're taking 15 pills a day, they don't get to choose what kind of adventures they want to go on. The only thing they get to focus on is the fact that they're suffering and their health is poor every day and it's limiting them in their life. So we have to remove that obstacle with the basics of human biology. And then from there, we can talk about individuality. What do you want to do that makes you happy? Do you want to be a poet? You want to play guitar? You want to roll jujitsu? You want to climb mountains? What do you want to do? You can do whatever you want to do. It's a video game. You know, that's what we
Yep.
want to get to.
Well, that is very well said, and I agree with you 100% because we have to start at the foundation of anything, and
Yes.
then build up and decide, like you said, if I want to climb a mountain, I go climb a mountain. If you want to go roll jujitsu, you can go roll jujitsu, and
Yeah.
whatever. That's where the joy comes into our life. But I do believe we're all humans, and molecularly we are all the same in those aspects of needing those nourishing foods or things in our life that will keep us fulfilled in body and mind. So, and I know you're a busy person, so I always ask one last question before we get
Sure.
done. And before I ask this question, I want to tell everybody I'll have all of Justin's information in the show notes, and we'll, in where you can contact him if you want to. And I hope you do, because this is this has been a very interesting conversation and very uplifting. But when we get to the end of every Don't Die Rusty episode, I ask people, what's the good life to Justin Nault?
Good life to Justin Nault is freedom and autonomy, man. Mostly time freedom, right? It's like if I structure my life in a way, which I've done, which I'm very happy with, is I structure my life in a way where my time is my own. Nobody gets to tell me where I need to be, where I got to go, how many hours I got to work, how much money I can get paid, what my health and wellness is going to be, what pills I have to take. Nobody tells me any of that. I build life on my own terms. I have ultimate freedom and autonomy.
Well, nobody's ever said that, but that is very, very good, because you got me thinking, and you just threw me for a loop right here in the fact that the freedom and autonomy is, we have more freedom if we don't have to worry about those prescriptions, and we have more freedom if we don't have to worry about all that stuff that we can't go do because we have those limitations because of what we are eating or what we're taking for prescriptions. So that one I never thought about it in those terms until you just said that. So see, I learn something every day. So
it's exactly that, man. If you're poisoning yourself and you're dealing with chronic health conditions and you have to take prescription medications and go to doctor's appointments and this, that, the other thing, like, you're living in a prison cell, man. And we can get you out of that prison cell. It's a choice. That's it. And I don't choose that for myself. I don't want these limitations on me.
And you're talking to a person that loves freedom, so I do not want to be there either. So I want to be able to do what I want to do for the rest of my life. In the aspect of,
Yeah.
I want to climb mountains. I don't care how old I am. I want to be able to do this, because here's the deal. I don't want to be lost in a hospital in my last breath.
Exactly.
My last breath, I want to be on top of a mountain or in the wild.
Man.
That's just where I want to be.
I couldn't agree more, brother. It's very well said. Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much, Justin. I'm going to let you go here because, like I said, I know you're busy, but this conversation has been enlightening and uplifting, and I truly appreciate the knowledge that you have given me.
Right back at you, man. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, Don't Die Rusty Nation, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And as usual, keep chasing your dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty.
Thank you for listening to the Don't Die Rusty podcast with your hosts, Rick Hanson and Ricky Bruley. The Don't Die Rusty podcast is written and produced by Rick Hanson and Ricky Bruley. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook at Don't Die Rusty. You can rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You might find your review read on a future episode. Got a question for the Ricks? Send us an email at don'tdierusty@gmail.com. It too could be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Don't Die Rusty podcast wherever fine podcasts are downloaded.